So, when you go out with your camera, what's actually going through your head? Be honest. Because for a lot of photographers I know, it's something like this. Is the light right? What's my aperture? Should I wait for a better moment? Maybe if I move a little to the left, is that shadow falling wrong? Wait, should I change my settings first? And while all of this is happening, the moment is already gone. Here's what I find interesting. The photographer who figured it out most completely, he's 85 years old, he's published over 150 books, and almost every single image he's ever made is, well, technically wrong, blurry, grainy, overexposed, out of focus. And he's one of the most influential photographers alive. His name is Daido Moriyama. And I think he's been trying to tell us something for 60 years that most photographers still refuse to hear. Moriyama was born in 1938 in Ikeda, Japan. He didn't pick up a camera seriously until his mid-20s, which is already interesting. He wasn't a prodigy. He didn't grow up obsessing over equipment or technique. What he did instead was becoming an assistant to Eiko Hosoe, one of the most technically precise photographers in Japanese history. Controlled compositions, perfect light, everything considered, everything placed exactly where it should be. And Moriyama absorbed all of that and then deliberately walked away from it. Not because he didn't understand it, because he understood it too well. He saw what technical perfection cost, what it required to give up. In 1968, Moriyama was 30 years old. He co-founded a photography magazine called Provoke. 3 issues, that's all it ran. 3 issues before it folded. Those 3 issues changed Japanese photography permanently. The name was the whole manifesto. Photography should provoke, should feel rough and urgent and alive. And they had a phrase for the aesthetic they were building. Are pure poke. Rough, blurry, out of focus. Not as a mistake, as an intention, as a philosophy. The Japanese photography establishment hated it. Critics called the work ugly, technically incompetent. One reviewer apparently said it looked like the photographer didn't know how to use a camera. That reviewer was not entirely wrong. Moriyama didn't care how to use a camera the way they meant it. There's a photograph Moriyama made in Misawa in 1978, a stray dog on a road, rough, slightly out of focus, the grain almost overwhelming the image. The contrast so high that half the frame is just black. It's one of the most reproduced street photographs in all history. And I want you to really sit with that for a moment. Not because it's impressive, but because it's kind of strange. We live in an era of 40 megapixel sensors and computational sharpness and AI noise reduction. And the image people keep coming back to is a grainy, blurry dog from 1971. Why? Because there's an urgency to it, a feeling that something real happened here, that nobody arranged it, nobody waited for better light, nobody checked the histogram. The dog was there, Moriyama was there, and that was enough. Now, I want to stay with this idea of technical obsession for a moment, because I think it's gotten worse, not better. We have more information available to us than any photographers in history. Histograms, focus peaking, eye tracking, computational sharpness that would have seemed like science fiction 20 years ago. Every camera forum on the internet is full of people measuring resolution and comparing sharpness at a 100% crop. And somehow a lot of the street photography I see look less alive than ever. Here's what I think happens. You learn your camera, good. You understand exposure, good. But then something shifts. The knowledge stops being a tool and starts being a filter. You start seeing the world through your settings instead of your eyes. You're not looking at the street anymore. You're looking at a problem to be technically solved. And here's the thing, this is not just true for photography. Psychologists have a term for it. Paralysis by analysis. There are studies on pianists, on athletes, on surgeons, people at the top of their field that show something uncomfortable. When experts are asked to consciously think through what they're doing while they're doing it, their performance gets worse, not better, worse. The thinking interferes with the doing. A golfer who consciously thinks about his swing mid-shot plays worse than one who just swings. A pianist who thinks about finger placement mid-performance makes more mistakes than one who just plays. And a photographer who thinks about settings in the decisive moment, you already know how that ends. And here's the thing. Nobody tells you that shift happens quietly. You don't notice it. One day you're just standing on a corner doing mathematics in your head while the picture slowly walks away. Moriyama said something I keep coming back to. That the camera is an extension of his eye, not his brain. The eye just sees, just reacts. The brain calculates, hesitates, and second guesses. And here's a fact that I find almost uncomfortable. Moriyama has estimated that he shoots somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 frames on one single day of shooting. Unbelievable, right? It's not in a week, a day. He doesn't review them in the field. He doesn't chimp. He doesn't stop to check what he got. He just keeps moving, keeps shooting, and keeps reacting. Most of us take 30 careful frames and go home feeling productive. That's not a judgment. It's just worth thinking about what those two approaches produce and what they say about how you see. I made a Fuji recipe a while back that I dedicated to him. High contrast, pushed grain, black and white. And at first, honestly, it felt a bit like cheating, like I was borrowing an aesthetic I hadn't earned. But then slowly something shifted. When the recipe already assumes imperfection, when grain is baked in, when contrast will eat the light no matter what, you stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop calculating. The camera has already decided that rough is okay, so you just shoot. And that's when it got interesting. I started doing something I'd rarely done before, walking through Munich and penning with people, moving with them, not waiting for the right moment, not composing carefully, just following the motion. Black and white, high contrast, and you have no idea what you're going to get. Someone walks past, you move with them, you shoot, and then later you look at what came out and sometimes you're genuinely surprised. Blurry in the wrong places, or maybe the right places, I'm honestly not sure anymore. Grain everywhere, sometimes just a coat, a gesture, half a face disappearing into black. But something in those images felt alive in a way that my careful shots often don't. That's not a mistake, that's the whole point. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this works better in black and white. Color asks you to think. Color has information, the red coat, the yellow light, the blue sky. You start managing all of that. Black and white strips it down. It's just light and shadow and movement. Closer to how Moriyama sees the world. Closer to how the eye works when it stops thinking and just looks. Here's another thing about Moriyama that most people don't know. He went through a period in the mid-1970s where he almost completely stopped shooting. A kind of creative collapse. He called it a loss of faith in photography, in whether images could mean anything at all. He disappeared, withdrew, published almost nothing for a few years. And then he came back, rougher than before, more himself than before. That crisis didn't weaken his work, it's in his work. You can feel it in the images of that period, a darkness, a desperation almost, that his earlier work doesn't have. He didn't resolve the doubt, he photographed it. Moriyama is 85 now. Still going out almost every day. No assistant, no elaborate plan, just the street and whatever is there. 150 books, exhibitions in Tokyo, New York, Paris, London. Work in a permanent collection of major museums all around the world. All of it grainy, all of it blurry, all of it technically wrong. So here's what I want to leave you with. I'm not saying technical knowledge doesn't matter. Of course it does. You need to understand your camera, but there's a ceiling, and past that ceiling, the knowledge stops helping you and starts protecting you from risk, from messiness, from the kind of images that actually feel like something. The histogram is not your friend on the street, it's a distraction dressed up as usual information. Moriyama understood that roughness is not a failure, it's evidence that something real happened. That you were there, that you reacted, that you didn't wait for perfect. And maybe that's the most honest thing a photograph can ever be. Set your camera, then forget it. Shoot a little wrong, see what happens. And if you do, if you go out and shoot a little wrong and something comes out that surprises you, I'd love to see it. Or just tell me about it. That's what the comments are for. And here's the video about the Moriyama recipe I was talking about. And here's another interesting video. See you there.